Can you climb stairs using Rokoko motion capture? Yes, of course the answer is yes, otherwise this would be a very boring video. What's going on? I'm Sam, creative director for Rokoko, and in this video we're going to be walking through how to do stair climbing and elevation tracking in general. We'll walk through a few of the tips that I've found most useful when recording stair climbing animations, but all in all this is fairly straightforward, so let's get right into it. So the first thing we'll do is just, actually record the clip. So I've got a little staircase, and you'll notice I don't have any socks on. I find that I get the best results generally either in bare feet or wearing the foot sensors over sneakers, because the way we move in socks is very particular and it can give you some bizarre results. And you can see in that clip maybe that there were some issues, when I had elevation tracking on and it was live and I didn't have a chance to do any of the editing. So here I am in Rokoko Studio, and for this recording, what you just watched, that side by side, it had elevation tracking on during the recording. You can find elevation tracking in the details panel. Generally though, I don't have it on when I'm recording because elevation tracking is something that really only works in recorded clips. You can use it live, but because of the way that translation works in Rokoko Studio, you're always gonna probably want to do some editing. So elevation tracking really isn't meant for live, motion capture, something like VTubing or a performance on stage. You can try to use elevation tracking live, again, just toggle it in the details panel. But this is really for recordings that you've already done. So generally when I do elevation tracking, it looks a lot more like this when I first look at the clip. And you can see that we've got the clip, I look at the camera, and we get this very bizarre movement where I'm not actually going up in elevation. And that's because elevation tracking, as you can see over here, is turned off by default. And that's fine because you can always, similar to treadmill mode, you can always turn elevation tracking on in post. Here we are, we're looking at the clip, and I'll turn on elevation tracking. You can see the first thing that pops up is a little measurement slider. Ideally, what the increments of your stairs are so that you can input them into this elevation slider. You can kind of eyeball it, but it will help the accuracy. Stairs are generally around 10 inches tall each stair, although that can vary widely, which comes out to about 24-25 centimeters. These stairs that I'm on were slightly less than that, so I'm actually going to bump this down just initially to 18 centimeters. And now you can see, as soon as I've turned on elevation tracking, and I'll turn on the foot locks here so we can see what's going on, my character is actually moving up in space. And that's because Rokoko Studio now knows that anytime one of my feet go up by 18 centimeters, it should then lock at that new elevation. And you can see this process is very similar to motion capture editing that we do in Rokoko Studio, right? The basic locomotion editing, where we just need to make sure that Rokoko Studio understands when each foot is planted on the ground. And more importantly, when your weight has shifted to that foot. It's not actually about when the foot is on the ground, it's about when your weight is on the foot, which is sometimes the same thing, but sometimes not. So let's just play this through. Again, how it looks, and we can kind of talk about it. You can see that it looks very good initially on going up the stairs. This looks kind of perfect. It looks really great, right? I do my little jump, but then as I start going down, you can start seeing some issues, and they'll really manifest at the end when I jump down and I'm not actually on the floor. And that's because you can see here, there's been a couple mistakes that Rokoko Studio has made with the foot tracking, with the foot contact or the weight shifting. And that's very typical, right? Cleanup in Rokoko Studio, it takes a minute, but it's really essential to do this cleanup to get the best results. And that's not true of just elevation tracking, that's also true of general locomotion. And this really isn't an exact science, so I kind of just have to eyeball it as I go along and fix any errors that I see. Again, this looks quite good initially, so I don't really need to fix anything going up the stairs, in my opinion. This all looks really good. Go up, do my little jump, everything looks great. Now the issues are going to start to arise as we go back down, and let's just stop as we see issues come up. So right here, you can see that our foot is going back up a level. And that's because we have this gap in our keyframes right here. So if I just remove that second keyframe and then make this left foot keyframe a little bit longer, you can see that, oh, we are now going down the stairs again. And here's another issue, right? So let's get rid of this keyframe. Let's extend this second one. Looks good, looks good, looks good, looks good. Looks good, looks good. And we're back down on the ground. And there's a weird gap here. So let's get rid of this keyframe and just make it so both feet land on the ground at the same time. And I'll finalize post-process. But just with a couple clarifying edits, we have, fixed any of those issues that came up with us not actually reaching our original elevation. And that's pretty much it. There's not a lot to it. Elevation tracking was designed, for this specific purpose in mind. And the reason why we have a separate, thing that we have to enable to be able to climb stairs is kind of a function of the way that inertial motion capture works. Remember, none of the sensors in my suit actually know where they are in space. They just know how they're rotating. And that means that we're doing some work in the back end, in the software, to understand when your weight is on a certain foot, and that allows us to tell where you're moving. And that's why it just makes way more sense for this to be a separate function, because it allows most of the motion capture that you do that isn't, changing heights to be more accurate. And then when you do have to climb stairs, you can turn this on and kind of deal with those animations individually as they come. If we always had elevation tracking on, you would get a lot of unwarranted, movement up and down, because oftentimes we're lifting our feet, beyond whatever 10 inches or 24 centimeters, but we aren't actually going up in space. But the important thing to know is that basically, you just need to turn on elevation tracking. You want to make sure to do a little bit of a measurement of that each stair height, or of whatever, the apple box that you're jumping onto, however tall that is. Plug that in, and you'll get a more accurate result. And you'll always get a more accurate result as well if you have the correct height on your avatar. Other than that, try to wear either shoes or just go barefoot. As I was saying before, you just get better foot contact data, I've found. Although, of course, you can always wear socks. Just try to act as if you aren't wearing socks, if that makes sense. From here, we just go to export. We can select our format, iClone, Unreal Engine. We've got a couple presets up here. I usually am going into Unreal. I use the Unreal Engine 5 Newton preset. Select our frame rate, select the location, then we're gonna export, hit export, and we're done. So there you go. That is how you do stair climbing in Rokoko Studio. Turn on that elevation tracking, do a little measuring of those stairs or whatever it is you're jumping up on, and the rest should be pretty simple, especially if you've ever done any sort of, motion capture cleanup in Rokoko Studio before, which is the first thing that you should learn when you're using your new Rokoko system. So if you have any questions, put them down in the comments below, and I will do my best to get to them. And other than that, have fun recording some stair climbing content. See y'all.